Most mornings I open my hardware store before the sun clears the grain silos. The bell over the door gives a soft ding-ding when I flip the sign to open. Not loud, not sharp, just enough to say the day has started the way it always does. I wipe the oak counter with lemon oil until it shines. My grandmother used to clean her kitchen the same way. The smell still feels like safety, like routine, like things staying where you put them. The ceiling fan ticks every third turn. Tick, tick, tick. I've meant to fix it for years. I never do. In a town like ours, people like things predictable. Rotary Club on Thursdays, church potluck every second Sunday, Founders Day every summer, whether the marching band can stay in tune or not. Reputation here matters more than money. A clean name is like a level shelf. You set something on it, and it stays. I'm 52 years old. I've run Honest Hardware since my father passed. Most folks just call it the shop. We sell screws by the handful, cut keys that unlock sheds older than me, and match paint colors to memories people bring in on napkins. Mr. Dickerson from the cabinet shop comes in every Tuesday just to argue about torque settings. The high school coach buys duct tape like it's a vitamin. Some people come for coffee, others come for advice they won't admit they need. And for 22 years, my wife Sarah stood beside me. We were that couple, the ones people pointed to when they wanted to believe marriage could be simple and good. Sunday roasts, porch lights left on, drives down to the lake when the peepers started up in spring. When people asked how we were doing, I always said, fine. And for a long time, that was true. Mark is the son of Sarah's stepmother. Not blood, but tangled enough in the family tree to make it uncomfortable. The town knows him from the bank and the golf course, always wearing those blue ties, buys them 3 at a time like a uniform. He smiles big, knocks his knuckles on my counter like we're in on the same joke. I stopped laughing at that joke years ago. Last winter, Mark started showing up more, said he was helping Sarah with refinancing ideas, talking about equity like it was a pile of leaves you could just rake into a better corner. He used words that sounded smart and meant nothing. He was careful with Sarah's feelings in a way that made my skin itch. Business stayed steady, but something felt off. The ledger would come up a dime short, then a dime long, then perfect again. Sarah stayed late more often, helping Elaine, talking paperwork, just family stuff. I told myself family gets heavy sometimes. You lift where you can. But little things started knocking out of rhythm. The fan ticking wrong. The doorbell ringing once when nobody came in. My phone buzzing with bank alerts at hours no one should be awake. At night, Sarah would sit with the TV on low, rubbing her temples. "It's just a lot right now," she'd say. "Work?" I'd ask. "Everything." She'd smile without showing teeth. It was late afternoon when I pulled into our driveway early. The sun had gone flat, like paper pressed against the sky. I coasted the last few feet, engine off. The gravel barely sighed. Sarah likes to keep the kitchen curtain open just a finger's width. Says the light keeps the soap from souring. From the gate, I could see that sliver. The lemon-yellow dish soap, the blue sponge, the glass we keep on the sill for loose change. And then I saw Mark's tie. Blue, loose, hanging from my chair. I told myself stories in the space of one breath. They're just talking. Paperwork. Coffee spilled. Then a hand moved across the table. A chair bumped the floor. And Sarah laughed. Not her church laugh. The other one. There's a sound people make when they forget anyone could hear them. Soft, careless. I heard it. My chest burned like I'd swallowed a nail. The kitchen smelled like lemon soap and iron from the pan I'd washed that morning. The ceiling fan clicked again. Tick, tick, tick. I could have opened the gate. I could have shouted, broken something, made myself unforgettable. Instead, I stepped back. I didn't want my voice in that room. I didn't want to be part of that sound. I got in my truck and drove. Around the block, then again. My hands shook so hard I had to pull over. I ended up back at the shop, standing behind the counter in the dark, letting dusk creep in through the windows. When the bell rang, I jumped. Just the wind. I laughed once, too loud, and it didn't sound like me. That night, I went home after dark. The kitchen was clean, the window closed, the fan off. Sarah sat on the couch with a blanket over her legs. "Late night?" she said. "Yeah," I said. I kissed the top of her head. She smelled like shampoo and someone else's cologne. I didn't sleep. People think the worst part is catching them. It's not. The worst part is the weeks after, when the world demands you act normal while your bones hum like a live wire. I ate dinner with Sarah. I joked with Mark in my shop. I carried on. But inside, something had shifted. On Monday morning, I changed every password. Bank, email, point-of-sale system. I called the bank manager and put a note on the account. No transfers without my signature, in person. "You okay?" she asked. "Just tightening the ship," I said. That afternoon, I made an appointment with a lawyer 2 towns over, a quiet man named Conrad, who listened until you ran out of words. You don't need to swing. You need to stack your paperwork. I liked that. Stacking, I could do. And that was the moment I stopped being a betrayed husband and started becoming something else. Because once I started stacking the paper, I realized Mark and Sarah weren't just betraying me. They were using my life to fund their future. And they had no idea how much I already seen.
Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. That's the cruel gift betrayal gives you. Your brain turns into a filing cabinet that never stops opening drawers. I stacked paper the way some men stack firewood before winter. Slow, careful, enough to last. At night, after Sarah fell asleep beside me, her breathing even, familiar, devastating, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a single lamp on. I labeled a folder in plain block letters, the way a man does when he doesn't want to feel dramatic. House and shop. Notes. Inside went screenshots of bank alerts, county filing printouts, handwritten notes about conversations that didn't sit right. I learned things most people never bother to learn, like how you can search the county recorder by name if you're patient enough to fight the website from 2004, like how UCC filings work. A uniform commercial code filing is basically a public note saying, if this goes bad, I get paid first. Banks use them. Suppliers use them. Scammers use them too. One night, around midnight, I typed Mark's full name into the search bar. I expected nothing. Instead, I found an LLC I'd never heard of, and a UCC filing attached to it. The secured party wasn't a bank. It was a company called M&M Holdings. Not clever, not local, just wrong. The address was a P.O. box. The notary stamp looked smudged, like it had been pressed through paper too thin to trust. I sat there staring at the screen while the refrigerator hummed behind me. Tick, tick, tick. My heart wasn't racing. That scared me more than if it had been. Mark started coming around more after that. New ties, new confidence. He leaned on my counter one afternoon like he owned it. "Busy times, boss man," he said. "Big opportunities coming." "Busy's fine," I said, polishing the counter with lemon oil. My hands needed something to do. He lowered his voice. "Whitfield Group's sniffing around Main Street. They like clean books." He flicked the rag with one finger. "That smell," he said, smiling. "You and your rituals." I smiled back, because that's what men do when they're waiting. At home, Sarah started asking questions. "Have you ever thought about consolidating accounts?" she asked one morning, buttering toast. "I like the buckets," I said. "Mark thinks I like the buckets," I said again. The toaster popped. She didn't look up. That night, my phone buzzed at 11:13 p.m. Bank login alert. IP address. Our house. I was asleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Every muscle in my body wanted to turn, shake her awake, demand answers. Instead, I rolled over. Silence is heavier than shouting, and I wanted them to carry it. In a small town, money moves slower, but rumors move fast. A man from the cabinet shop complained about expedite fees Mark's new arrangements required. It's supposed to speed things up. Cost me extra, still waited 3 weeks. He laughed like it was nothing. I didn't. At church, someone mentioned a donation that never made it into the bulletin. At the diner, a waitress said Mark paid through some third-party account for tax reasons. Every story was small, but together they made a map. I watched. I listened. I wrote nothing I couldn't prove. Meanwhile, Sarah played her part perfectly. She cooked. She smiled. She touched my arm when people were watching. One afternoon, we sat on the back steps together. The light was soft. The maple tree threw lace-like shadows over our shoes. She told me a story from her childhood, about her father leaving, about debt collectors at the door, about Elaine standing strong and keeping the house. I swore I'd never feel powerless again. I swore I'd be the one holding the pen. I would have handed her every pen I owned. Instead, I said, "We're okay." She nodded. Didn't believe it. Neither did I. Sleep stopped coming easy. When I did drift off, I dreamed of ledgers that wouldn't balance, shelves that tipped no matter how many times I adjusted them. I fixed the ceiling fan one night. Actually fixed it. The ticking stopped. The silence felt wrong. I let it slip back the next day. Some imperfections remind you where you are. I met Conrad again. We talked about marital waste, about separate assets, about how money moved without consent leaves footprints. "You're doing this right," he said. "Quiet, documented." "How far can it go?" I asked. He looked at me over his glasses. "As far as the paper takes you." The final piece arrived wrapped in politeness. Founders Day. Elaine asked me to handle the AV setup, slides, projector, sponsor logos. "You always keep things clean," she said. "We need that right now." I smiled. "Sure." That night, I took the projector out from under the counter and set it on the workbench. I turned it on. The bulb warmed slowly, casting a square of light under the back wall. Dust floated through the beam like tiny confessions. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew where, and I knew when. They thought I didn't know. They thought silence meant weakness. But silence was just me letting the room fill up before I turned on the light.
There's a moment in every quiet man's life when the weight shifts, not with noise, not with anger, with certainty. For me, it happened on the Tuesday morning, standing behind my counter, watching the sun crawl across the pegboard wall like it had nowhere better to be. My phone buzzed. Another bank alert. Not a transfer, just a login. Same pattern. Late hours. From home. I locked the screen and slid the phone back into my pocket. That was the moment I stopped wondering if they were using me and started deciding how they'd stop. Choosing the battlefield. I didn't want a divorce scene. I didn't want a screaming match that turned me into the villain of my own story. In a town like ours, loud men lose twice. I wanted daylight, witnesses, paper. Founders Day was perfect. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a ledger of the town's trust. Business owners, church leaders, the mayor, Whitfield Group reps sniffing for acquisitions. If you wanted to tell the truth in a way that stuck, you did it where reputations were printed in programs. The plan takes shape. I broke it into pieces. Piece 1, protect what was mine. Already done. Accounts locked, alerts active, legal groundwork laid. Piece 2, follow the money. Not rumors, not feelings, just transactions.
I spent nights comparing invoices, screenshots next to carbon copies, timestamps lining up like teeth in a zipper. M&M holdings showed up everywhere once I knew how to look. Expedient fees, consulting costs, routing instructions, always just small enough to avoid attention. Piece 3, make it public without making it personal. That part mattered. I wasn't going to talk about bedrooms or betrayals. Numbers don't blush, paper doesn't lie. There were moments I almost broke. Once Sarah caught me printing documents at midnight. "Working late?" she asked, leaning against the doorway. "Inventory," I said. She studied my face longer than usual. "Mark thinks you're stressed," she said softly. "I'm fine," I said. She nodded, but her eyes stayed sharp. Another time, Mark joked about cutting me in on something big. "We're family, right?" he said, clapping my shoulder. My jaw locked so hard my teeth hurt. I smiled. Family. The folder grew thick. Inside it lived county filings, bank login alerts, invoices routed through M&M, a simple, clean letter from Conrad explaining marital waste in language even a town council could follow. I labeled a thumb drive in black marker. Inventory. Like leftovers no one should touch. The night before Founders Day, I couldn't sleep at all. I lay in bed listening to Sarah breathe. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns hot and fast. This was colder, heavier. I thought about every morning I'd open that shop, every person who trusted my recommendation, every quiet kindness that built a reputation brick by brick. They hadn't just betrayed me, they'd gambled with the town's trust. And that was something I couldn't let slide. The banquet hall smelled like lemon polish and coffee. The floor shone too much. Someone always overdoes it. I rolled the AV card in after lunch. Projector, cords, batteries, square reader. Elaine moved people like a field marshal of manners. The Whitfield rep stood near the stage, crisp and observant. Mark wore a blue tie that caught the light like a dare. We nodded at me like we shared a secret, just not the one he thought. I tested the projector. Dust rose in the beam. I tested the square reader. Beep. That sound settled something in my chest. Mr. Dickerson leaned over. "You good?" he asked. "I'm good." For the first time, I meant it. They thought Founders Day would crown them, a merger, a future. They didn't know the projector was loaded, or that silence was about to speak louder than any shout ever could.
Founders Day always starts the same way. Too much applause for speeches nobody remembers, coffee that's already gone cold, a room full of people pretending the future feels predictable. I stood at the back by the AV cart, hands resting on the metal rail, feeling the faint vibration of the projector warming up. Dust floated through the beam like it always does. People call it magic. It's not. It's just particles finally visible when light hits them the right way. Let it play. Elaine finished thanking the sponsors. The mayor cleared his throat and said something about heritage and grit. Then Mark stepped up to the microphone. "Friends," he said, voice smooth, practiced, "we're excited to talk about new opportunities for Main Street. Let it play." Mr. Dickerson's voice wasn't loud, but it cut. A few heads turned toward me. I clicked the remote. An invoice from my shop filled the screen, stamped paid in red. Nothing dramatic, just familiar. Then another invoice from the cabinet shop, expedite fee, M&M Holdings. A murmur rolled through the room like wind through dry grass. I didn't take the mic. I didn't need it. "This," I said calmly, my voice carrying in the quiet, "is why we keep clean books." Click. A third slide. A fourth. Small amounts, carefully placed. You miss one, you can explain it. You miss 10, it's a system. Mark's smile tightened. I clicked again. The county registrar's page appeared.
UCC financing statement, secured party, M&M Holdings, address, P.O. Box. A UCC filing is a public claim. It tells the world who gets paid first when things go bad. I paused. It's a good tool when everyone knows it's there. The Whitfield rep stiffened. Her fingers tightened on her folio. I clicked again. Bank login alerts, times highlighted, dates circled. You can tell when someone looks, not just when they take. Chairs creaked. Forks stopped mid-air. I'm not here to talk about bedrooms. That sentence landed heavier than anything else. This town doesn't need that. A few people shifted uncomfortably. I'm here to talk about numbers, because numbers are what we all agree to believe. Click. A cropped text message appeared. Run it through M&M. Timestamp. Nothing salacious, nothing personal, just intent. I picked up the Square reader. If you paid an expedite fee to anyone listed here this month, I'm refunding you right now from my pocket. A pause. Then someone stood. Then another. A line formed without instruction. Beep. Receipt printed. Beep. Another. Each sound felt like a nail driven straight. Mark stepped toward the stage. This is out of context. Let it play, Mr. Dickerson repeated. The Whitfield rep closed her folio. We don't engage with entities that route funds through anonymous vehicles, she said flatly. That's a compliance line. Mark looked around. No one met his eyes. Sarah sat 3 tables back. She hadn't moved. Her purse rested in her lap like something fragile. When Mark finally looked at her, she didn't look back. When she looked at me, it was brief, clear, like someone seeing the end of a long road. I walked to her table and set a manila folder beside her glass. This is the first half of what comes next. It's about the business, the house, everything built before other choices. The ice clinked once. She nodded, didn't cry. Elaine stood. Thank you, everyone, she said steadily. We're taking a 10-minute break. People exhaled like they'd been underwater. During the break, they didn't line up to talk. They lined up to stand near me. A hand on my shoulder, a nod, a folded note slipped by the remote. Mark stayed at the edge of the room. The Whitfield rep stayed 6 feet away from him, like numbers could catch. By Monday morning, the merger was dead. By noon, the town knew why. Mark stopped coming around. Elaine sent bread with a note that said, "Thank you for keeping the ledger honest." Sarah and I met with Conrad. We split what needed splitting. No shouting, no scrambling. Clean. She moved out quietly. I stayed. Life returned to its shape. I opened the shop, polished the counter, let the fan tick again. People didn't look away when I walked into Rotary. They nodded. The projector went back under the counter. The dust settled, and most nights when I turn off the lights and flip the sign to closed, the bell rings once. Ding. Clean. Final. I lost a marriage. I kept my name. In a town like this, that's the math that matters.